Hey everybody, it's Mark Masters. It's Always Bookin Comedy. It's Monday night. It's 6:30 p.m. in Colorado, and we have no guest. So I'm going to email this guest and say, send the link. All right. Well, until they get on, I can talk through what I'm doing the next couple weeks, which is a big, long comedy road trip. Just added a new date today. I'm gone for less than 2 weeks, and I'm going to drive almost 5,000 miles. So about like 4,700 miles. Let's walk through it. I had to make a spreadsheet today. Let's see if I can. Oh, we got our guest. Holy cow, he's here.
Hey there, Mark.
Hey, how are you,
Sorry
Scott?
about that.
Live right now to the world. Welcome.
Logged in the wrong game account, of course, so I was freaking out.
All right, awesome. We got a question. So I was just talking about this. I'm about to leave for a 4,700 mile road trip in less than 2 weeks. I'm driving 4,700 miles. And Mark wants to. This is Mark from the Carolinas, North Carolina. I don't know how much time they're giving me. It depends on the show. I'm doing as much as an hour in exotic places like Akron, Colorado, and Starkville, Mississippi.
I've heard of Akron, yeah.
I had never heard of Akron. I had to
Only
find
because Corey David asked me to do a show there one time, and I was like, I've
really?
never heard of Akron.
Yeah, that's good to know. I'll ask him how bad it is. Yeah. I'm assuming it's not great. In fact, today I was Googling like all the different cities I'm going to. I was trying to how glamorous life on the road is. I was trying to find out if there were Planet Fitnesses in these different places. I'm sleeping in my car and I shower at Planet Fitness.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah. And so like some beautiful pictures. I had no idea, like Chattanooga, Tennessee. When you Google Chattanooga, Tennessee, there's like a Google preview of an image of the town. And it's like this beautiful river with a bridge, and you can see like a downtown in the distance. I look up Huntsville, Alabama, and it looks great. And Orlando, Florida, even it looks really good. And I type in Akron, Colorado, and I'm not kidding. It brings up, you can do this right now at home. It brings up like a shed. It's like a metal shed on a dirt road. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So then I checked like some of the other images to see if this was real. And like their third image is a subway. It's a very sad looking subway. It's like the big place in town. I love
glamorous, man.
On Akron because I love small town comedy. I love going to small towns and doing comedy. But anyways, let's skip past that. Let's get to know Scott. Scotty or Scott? What do you go by?
Weirdly enough, people in my hometown call me Scotty. Everyone else just calls me Scott, but I never even noticed that. It's one girlfriend I invited back to my hometown, and she's like, "Why does everyone call you Scotty?" And I'm like, "Oh, I guess they do. I never did." So yeah, Scott's fine. Scotty's fine. Scott. It don't matter.
Let's go back to the beginning when you got started in comedy. When, how, why?
So everyone asks, don't you love that question when people are like, well, how'd you get into stand-up? And I'm like, well, ego, of course.
Nice.
Because, I feel like you hear some of those stories sometimes where people are like, well, my friends thought I was really funny and they signed me up for an open mic and I did really well. And I'm like, that's not real. It's not real. No, you eventually just like it and you go try it, even though you're going to bomb. You bomb. You bomb for 3 minutes. I started out in Kansas City at Stanford's Comedy Club. When I was 28 years old. I had been wanting to do it since I was 25, but I just could not get the nerve to go up on stage. And so, started at a very notorious kind of comedy club in Kansas City called Stanford's Comedy Club. And it's, it was just like, weirdly enough, like I said, I didn't do well, but I loved it. It was like, what was that be in 2011? And I'm like telling Magic Johnson HIV jokes. I was like, none of these even like are timely. It's just like, I think I like ran through my Twitter feed and tried to figure out, what was funny. So 2011, is that right? Yeah. 2011, Kansas City, Stanford's Comedy Club. That place does not exist anymore, which is unfortunate because it was a lot of fun to learn there.
Yeah. That's a long time ago. Have you done comedy in Wichita? I'm going to Wichita for the first time ever.
I have. I actually saw that you're going to be at Four Shades.
Yeah. Have you?
I just did 3 shows at Four Shades. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
awesome.
my hometown is in Kansas. It's like 45 minutes from Wichita. So I'm very
Oh.
well versed with Wichita.
Nice.
And it's one of those things where I filmed a comedy taping, a comedy special via 4x3 production, or sorry, but via someone else. And so like the first time I ever tried it, I did it at Borchet's, and it was great. You're gonna love the room. It's a really cool kind of cocktail place / music venue, and yeah, it's a really cool place, and you'll like doing the show there.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah,
So it sounds
No,
like
go
you
ahead.
got a what's that?
Oh, I just said go ahead. I was talking because
yeah.
I'm rambling.
So let's talk about so you've been doing comedy like a decade plus. That's incredible.
Yeah.
When did you start running shows? I know you run at least one show, and
Yeah,
like
so-
why and how did that go?
For the longest time, I never ran a show. I never wanted to. It seemed just like way too much effort. But then, and I did the whole Los Angeles thing for 4 years, and I'm not really a huge fan of LA, but my buddy had a co-working space there, and he wanted to start doing something for like the members. And so we started doing a comedy show once a month. And so that was about in like 2018 where I started running that room. And in 2019 actually, and then of course the pandemic hit, so that just kind of wiped that out. But then once I moved to Denver, actually the same friend moved to Denver as well, and he got another co-working space. So I'm like, well, let's do another members night. And so yeah, we call it the 3600 because there's 3600 seconds in an hour, and that's how long the show is. We're pretty clever,
Nice.
But it's one of those things where I witnessed way too many comedy shows in LA that were at bars, that were at non-comedy venues that would just drag on and on, and people would, show up and try and get a spot and kind of like weirdly use some clout that they have. They're like, hey, I perform at Comedy Store. Like, well, everyone kind of does. There's the belly room.
Right.
And so, I just realized I was like, if I'm ever going to do a show, it's not going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours long at a bar. And so luckily with the co-working space, we tell people like, hey, show up beforehand. We'll get you some free drinks and you can mingle and meet some people. And then from 8 to 9, it's a comedy show. And that's it. You're out of there by 9:05. And you still have the rest of your Saturday left.
Nice. That's cool.
So that's the premise.
Any like when you the place in LA, like how did you convert a co-working space into a comedy room? Did you do much or?
No, we actually did because it was kind of like this. You've seen those co-working spaces. This place used to be, before it was co-working space, like just kind of like a big art gallery, so just wide open spaces, right? But for some reason, my buddy already in his co-working space had like these sports bleachers. Like they're like that's where most people sat, and then we like kind of put chairs around that kind of stuff. So yeah, we still had to set up the room, but it was weirdly kind of perfect for 50 people tops to be in there. Yeah, nice. So it was kind of like wide open spaces, had a kitchen, bathroom, all that kind of stuff.
Did you do anything with lighting or sound?
We just kind of dimmed them really with sound. Okay. We had kind of probably not the best system, but just one speaker. Actually, no, I guess we had pretty good because we would plug it into the entire system that was there already. And so it sounded good. You're also just so jam-packed in there that the sound wasn't really the problem. But then, yeah, once we had a spotlight hanging from the thing that we set up. And so once the show started, we killed the lights and just let the spotlight do the work. So it was kind of minimal, really, setting up for that kind of show. Okay, and even for the 3600, we rearrange chairs. That's really about it. And we give a microphone and that kind of stuff. And so I think we're doing that on purpose. We don't want to make this harder on ourselves than it needs to be because no one else is setting this up. We have no roadies. No one does. And so, yeah, it's try to keep it simple.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like in LA you had no problem booking people because there was just like a flood of people who wanted
so many comedians there. So many people. Now, we always have ran the show on a Saturday night, so I understand that people, are probably going to be booked, but I try and get a hold of them and promise them a good pay, because ultimately, like, I do it for the comedy. My buddy loves comedy as well, but he does it. He wants people to come in and see his co-working space in a different light, and maybe there's been a couple of comedians who have signed up to be members there. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where it just kind of, worked out in that manner.
Nice. That's cool. Any booking wins in LA? You ever get like Maniscalco to drop in or anything like that?
We had some really good ones. We had I did the road with this guy named Todd Rex. He's a He's based out of LA, and he's a hilarious dude. He goes on the road with Craig Robinson from all those from The Office and all those movies you've seen. So we had him headline. We had Blair Sochi. One time, actually, Brent Gill had to bail us out because I gave the headliner the wrong date. And so Brent Gill was like, "Hey man, you just want, instead of doing 15 minutes, you want to do 30?" He's like, "Of course, yeah." And no, then we had like who were some others? Chris Porter, who's a Kansas City guy, but he lives out in LA. He's a hilarious comedian. Yeah, so we had some good wins, and even like the people that weren't necessarily household names just had awesome sets there, because there's definitely no shortage of comedians in LA, but there's a lot of good ones too. There's a lot of bad ones, but there's a lot of great ones as well.
So in the 3600, do you ever book out-of-state comics, or you mostly?
We do. We've done it before with High Plains, but because they're already coming in.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, I haven't booked this show yet. And so we booked a couple from New York, but ultimately,
did you get anybody this September?
We didn't do this one. Everyone was booked up because I knew I had a buddy from St. Louis named Rafe Williams, who's hilarious. I was trying to get him on the show, but it was too much logistics and stuff like that. We had Allison Rose from New York do it the year before, and she had a great set. And so I would love to book more out of town comedians, but sometimes I'm the one going to them. It's hard, because usually if you're here on a Saturday night and you're not from here, you're booked already.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason you're here.
Yeah, but like I said,
it's not a co-working space.
No, yeah, and it's one of those things where plenty of good people in Denver as well. So if you can just catch one of them on a night where, hey, come do my show, and then you can bebop over to Comedy Works or wherever you're at and do your shows. And so it hasn't been an issue yet, but it's the Saturday is probably like our biggest kind of hurdle really with this show.
Right. Do you feel like you'll ever exhaust the local talent? Like you're going to run out?
I think so, because it'll take a little bit. I mean, yes, we will, because ultimately it's only a monthly show. So that helps, only booking it's 4 total comedians. It's 3 kind of feature comedians, and then one more headliner. And so really, it's just like, there's been a lot of people where they just been, it's just like wouldn't fit into their schedule, because otherwise people are usually like, they love the pay, because that's part of it. They love the pay. They have to do 20 minutes. And that's a headlining spot. And so that's kind of like how we kind of like finagle, or like, hey, we don't want you to just kill your Saturday night for us, but here's the good parts of it, and stuff like that. So no, I would love to book more out of town comedians. It'd be nice if I knew they were like doing one-nighters around, then I would just, because that would be a good payday. And we sell merch for the people afterwards. And it's a total money-making machine for them if they can come and do it on the road.
How do you generate an audience? Sounds like it's a great show and there's a lot of people showing up. What are your tricks?
Yeah, so the kind of the hack that we've created with this co-working space is the fact that there's already members, and so the members get in for free, and it's kind of like hey, here's like a gift to you guys. Like everyone else has to pay, but this is for you. This is your co-working space, and you're here so much at daytime, but like come in, let your hair down at night and enjoy the free drinks and all that kind of stuff. Everything's for free, and then. Like the nice part about it is there's been a lot of word of mouth. Now you can't really forecast for word of mouth, but their friends are telling their friends. And so I think our last 4 shows, last 4 months basically, have all been sold out, which is great. Now the other thing is that room is not terribly big. So if we can comfortably fit like 50 people in there, but we've actually got it up to like 60 or 65 before, because they're like, hey, we're already doing something after this show, but we just need something to kind of fill in the time.
Yeah. Do you take it? Or is it just like show up? Okay. What do you use?
The members can just show up. We let them, they only need to let us know if they're bringing a +1. Okay. But then, we do Eventbrite. We do Facebook event invitations. And so it's really kind of like the easiest way to do it. But then every now and then we make posters that we put around the co-working space. But then every now and then Paul and his team will go out and post them up on like coffee shops or in the Golden Triangle area, or just simply put them on like a telephone pole and just there's a QR code, and whoever comes. And sometimes it's just people show up. They're like, "How'd you hear about this?" And they're like, "We just looked up comedy on Google."
Yeah.
And we saw it. I was like, "Okay, great."
And
So
this is
the members do help, though. The members help by just spreading the word.
They spread the word. This is a little selfish, but I'm curious about what you do with when you said Facebook invitations. Can you just explain a little bit, like how you use Facebook to market?
So I feel like I honestly don't know how well like the events work on Facebook, but I know that I can reach a bunch of people by inviting them. But basically, how you get a cover photo for every event you do. I plaster that with the headliner's face, and so like it doesn't just look like some comedy show. You're going to see this person. Okay. So like I just sent out the one today or last week, and it's got Elliot Woolsey's face on it. So it's not just like, oh hey, come see possibly a 60 comedians because it looks innocuous. It's just called the 3600. Can you hear the happy birthday behind me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm at a bar right now. Got a show later.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where, we just kind of try and make sure that people know that there's a headliner on this show, and they're always good. And so we obviously explain it in the event space, but like as long as people read it, I think they get a good understanding that it's going to be a good show, and it's going to be 3 other comics, and then a headliner. And so I think with just like trying to keep that in people's faces as much as possible, because like there's nothing wrong with browbeating people with information. Just here you get it, see it all the time. And so we'll try and like send out multiple invites to people throughout the month, because we really don't get a
this is a really dumb question. Like, what is a Facebook invite? Like, is it like all the members of your page, you blast them?
No, so like basically on Facebook, the process is what the co-working space is called. They set up the Facebook event, and then I can just go in there and invite people. So I can invite all of my friends. I can invite Denver people. I can invite people from the Denver comedy scene Facebook page, group page. I can go like,
and it shows up in those people's feed as like a message. Hey, you've been invited to this.
Hey, you've been invited to this,
with like an RSVP button or something.
Absolutely. And then it just also directs them right to the Eventbrite ticket link. Okay. And usually by Wednesday of show week, we know a pretty good understanding of like how many people are going to show up. People always still are buying tickets up until the show, but most of the time we can kind of relax. Like, hey, we've already sold 40 tickets, and that's fine. And now if more people come, that's better, because the selling 40 tickets is amazing, because we have members who we might not even know who are coming. And so it's kind of like,
you charge for the tickets, or are they free?
We do. So the members do not have to pay, but if you're not a member, we are charging you.
Okay. And what do you think about, like, are you sticking with Eventbrite after all these fee changes and stuff? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know who else to use. That's the problem. This is kind of more on Paul's side, because I've used Eventbrite for a lot of things, and they just take such a chunk out of it.
Yeah.
And it's not ideal, but I think it's like the devil at this point.
Yeah.
So whichever one, kind of, if you have anything else that you use, let me know.
I'm trying to work on something. Check in with me in 2024. A couple months, I might have an alternative for comedy show runners that are like small. I feel like Eventbrite's really stepping on the small event runner. Like if you're running, if you're selling 500 tickets for a show, the fees aren't that bad. But if you're selling 40 to 60 tickets, it's awful.
It's significant. Like you can tell, you can notice it. Right? And so, I totally agree. So when you make your $1 million idea, which I trust that you will, I will
more like an $85 idea.
That's right.
I'll let you know. I'm working on some stuff. I'm making some. We'll see.
Anything's comedy friendly, I'm all for.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we talked about all that stuff. What else about like booking? You have any tips for booking? You said that you book far out. That's probably one of your tips.
We try to. We book far out for like the headliners, because we usually don't have the date for the next show right away, and so I try and put a little earworm in people's drop a little earworm in there to let them know, like, hey, I want you to headline. Here's the pay, and then here's when we're thinking about doing it, but I'll get back to you. And so we'll try and book the headliners way more in advance, because we start promoting them. We make social media graphics that we blast on the Process's Instagram page, my Instagram page, Facebook page, wherever you can see it. And then it's just one of those things where then like the other 3 comedians, usually I try and book them at the same time, but sometimes people can't get back to me on time, or maybe they had to check their schedule and stuff like that. You know how comedians can be, because I'm flaky on this stuff too. And it's one of those things where, just try and book ahead of time and just let people know, here's where the building is. We're on the second floor. It's kind of weird, but like it's a good show. Yeah. Because people are like, sometimes they hear the co-working space and they're like, I don't know about that. But I'm like, it's free booze. Come and get some free wine, some free beer.
Yeah. Have you ever had a headliner cancel on you?
I have. Unfortunately, one guy, his flight was supposed to get him in that day. He was coming back to Denver, and he got held up at TSA for not having his ID on him. So I had to scramble that day to find someone. But luckily, like in Denver, it was easy to find someone that was good and that was available, because it's an easy payday too. There's been a couple times where people are trying to do 2 shows in the same night, and that always makes me nervous. And so I try to make sure that I'm like, hey, if you have another show, that's fine, but I need you here at a certain point if you're my headliner.
Exactly.
So no, that's really the only 2 problems that I've ever had.
When a headliner didn't show and you had a substitute, did the audience care? Because you emphasized earlier that you really promote the face of the headliner.
I think only one
person
notice. I think most people just like to know who the headliner is, but most of the time they just come for a good show. And when the guy couldn't get through TSA, only one woman showed up knowing him and wanted to see him, and she left once she found out that he wasn't going to be there. But ultimately, no, people know they're going to see a good show anyways, and they understand it. This is just,
of course,
crap happens.
I want to talk about road work, but before we do that, I have a suggestion for you. You may have thought of it before, but if you're trying to book more out-of-town talent with a one-nighter on a Saturday, you should team up with somebody who has a one-nighter on a Friday and offer a combo deal.
That's a good idea.
I don't know who has a one-nighter on a Friday.
No, but it makes me. I know people who do shows, but I just don't know if they're Fridays or whatnot.
Yeah,
but that's a good idea.
You have to coordinate. Yeah, you have to make sure you do it on the same weekend, because you could be on a different cadence. Maybe you're the third Saturday, but they're the second Friday. But if you can marry those together, and then you can pile your money together, you can get somebody to come in for a whole. You're basically offering them a weekend instead of one show. That's more than twice as good. So
that's great. That's a really good idea. Easily you can do that.
Yeah. Or if you wanted more control, you could even start your own one-nighter Friday show that isn't at the co-working space. You set it up somewhere else. All right. We got some audio difficulties possibly. Well, let's start talking about road work. And you're listening? Okay. I don't know. You got a good road story? It sounds like if you've been offered a trip to Akron, Colorado, you're pretty big time. And I'm sure you got some good stories. You're muted, Scott. You're muted. Hey, we can't hear you. Your mute is on. How do I unmute? Oh, here, I can unmute you. Can I do that? No, it won't let me. You have to. There you go. Go ahead now. Yeah. Okay, I can hear you.
I've done a lot of shows in small towns, right?
Yeah.
And I'm from a small town, and so I also started at Stanford's Comedy Club, which was the fucking Wild West, man. $10 all you can drink beer night on Wednesdays were crap shows. They're just hell gigs.
No, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I took it off. So the thing is, I'm used to nonsense a lot, and I don't mind dealing with it. But there's been times where I'll have a show at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, and it never ceases to amaze me how drunk people sometimes show up to the show at. And I know it's just they had a long day. They probably went out golfing. They're just doing small town shit. But the amount of people that just show up drunk.
Oops.
There's been 2 times. One time in Nebraska, one time in Little Rock, Arkansas, where 2 women, different shows, just laid down on the stage. They were sitting so close to the stage, they just sat down next to the stage, and that was, I don't know, that was almost like just where there's, and I didn't even stop them. And these bars don't know how to regulate that kind of stuff. Like, just let her sleep. She's not gonna wake up, which is always just kind of a weird stance to take on that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember there's one time after a show in Lincoln, Nebraska, we met up. Me and another comedian named Davey Wester did a comedy show at the Zoo Bar, which is kind of infamous. They always had like fun Sunday night shows. And we meet up with one of his friends. Her name was Trisha. And she took us out for the night, and we met up with some of her biker friends. And so we were just hanging out with 3 biker guys, ended up going back to one of their houses. And of course, we go down to the basement, 3 not swastika flags. It's Confederate flags everywhere. And we're just like, oh my God, what did we like? And it's like a nice suburban house, but in the basement, they're all patched up. They're terrifying, and they have a lot of propaganda. And so we're like, okay, let's just have like one drink and get the fuck out of here, because but I was like, that's not where I thought my night was gonna go. Ended up at a strip club called The Office, where all of the chairs are just office chairs, and just it was nuts. And so sometimes you just never know what you're gonna get into on the road. You really don't.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's crazy.
That's hilarious.
I'm sure you've done stuff like that before, or just like not that specifically, but you just fall in backwards into something, you know? It's nuts how that works.
Yeah, it's unpredictable. You could say that.
It's nuts.
You ever been stiffed?
No. I have had at Stanford's, they were kind of notorious for bouncing checks. So I had a couple of checks bounce. So I just would go and get another check, which then eventually, hopefully that one would bounce. So luckily no one's ever stiffed me, but I learned to talk to the guys who owned Stanford's were called the Glazers. And they're all 3 brothers, Jeff, Jack, and Craig. And so they told me, all these headliners, like, hey, don't take Craig's money until you ask him when you can cash this check. So he's like, just like, hey, Greg, when can I cash this check? He's like, do it by Thursday, you know, that kind of stuff, because otherwise it would bounce. It ain't gonna work. And even like the banks around town knew that the Stanford Comedy Club checks bounce. So like, okay, let's see if this one's gonna work.
That's so funny. All right, well, I'm going to Wichita, which is close to your hometown.
Yep.
Another selfish question: where should I eat in and around?
Okay. So fast food wise, there's a place called Spangles. It's locally owned. It's a great hamburger place. You'll love it. Spangles. I don't know if you are a drinker, but there's a couple good breweries. One's called Hopping Gnome. Another's called Central State Brewing. Okay. And I'm trying to think like what other kind of food Wichita is really kind of known for. There's a good
your breakfast place.
It's the home of Pizza Hut, first of all. Okay.
That's where Pizza
Hut
was founded?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Wichita.
Is the Pizza Hut still in business? Like the original Pizza Hut?
They have the original Pizza Hut on campus, and you can go drive by it and see it. But the corporation, the headquarters, are long gone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's crazy. All right, we got to wrap this up. How can people find you?
Oh, find me on all social media at Irrelevant Scott on Twitter, X. Social media like Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. That's how you find me. That's what I'm on. It's TikTok as well. I don't do a lot of TikToks, but hey, you know, they got the information.
All right, we got another comment from North Carolina. He tried to go to the Pizza Hut Museum, but it was closed.
Oh yeah, it's tiny. It's a brick building. It can't be more than 200 square feet or so. Yeah, but like,
is it a real thing?
It was literally like a little hut, and that's where you'll drive by and see it.
Unbelievable. I'm gonna put that on my list right now. Okay, that's another episode of Always Bookin Comedy. Everybody, Scott Shaffer out of Denver, Colorado, formerly Los Angeles, Kansas City, been all over,
everywhere.
Invite him to your basement. And,
that's right. Please don't have any Nazi flags this time.
All right. We'll see you next Monday, 6:30 Mountain, everybody. I'm just realizing I'm going to be like in my car for next week's episode. I have no idea.
It's going to be a long trip.
Where I am. So I'll have to figure that out. All right, everybody, have a great week. Thanks for joining us, Scott. We'll see you next